Madam, you are audible, madam. You are audible.
Okay.
Can we start the webinar, madam?
Yes. 1 minute.
Yes.
1 second. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Dear participants, heartily welcome to this webinar on the NEP sensitization. All the principals, IKC coordinators, some vice chancellors, some professors from the universities across the Telangana who are all joined in this program. Heartily welcome on behalf of NAAC family. So today with us, Dr. Manasa Nagbhushan. She is actually the professor and head of management department, MS Ramaya College, Bangalore. Previously, she was also worked as a director of CIS, is a famous NGO which is working towards the education and other related areas. Today, the eminent speaker Manasa Madam with us. I request Dr. Manasa Madam to take over the session. I request all the participants to kindly mute your device during the presentation so that disturbance will be avoided. I request participants in the last, you can ask your queries to Manasa Madam. Madam will definitely answer your all queries. Thank you very much. I request Manasa Madam to take over the session.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. All professors from different institutions who have joined here. And thanks, Vishnu Mahesh, for the introduction that you have given about me. So I would like to talk about the national education policy and our efforts towards the implementation of this national education policy. So I'm sure that all of you must have read quite a lot about this policy, and then various points might have been discussed. And I do not know how many of your institutions have already started having a task force to implement the national education policy in your own institutions. Okay, so though I assume that though you know quite a bit about this policy, I'll be uh, in general talking about what are the policy points, what does it mention, what is in it in terms of letter and spirit of the policy. Okay, so until and unless we understand the spirit of the policy, implementation would be very tough for us, because the main thing is it has to get into our DNA, it has to get into our at the spirit level only. That means we should be so enthusiastic to bring those kind of changes in our own institutions, because mostly what happens is that when we talk about education, we come across a large number of um, grievances of the faculty, of the administrators. We are not able to do this. If you talk about research, you will have constraints with respect to research. When we talk about governance, we say that we have constraints in governance. Or when we talk about teaching learning, we have constraints in teaching learning. So all these are the normal issues which we come across. But to talk about national education policy, this gives you a very good direction in whatever we are talking about as problems, this or challenges. This national education policy gives a complete direction and a guidance to all of us as to how to proceed, and what are the changes that we are going to bring in our own institutions uh, at our level. So before talking about the policy, I would also like to mention one thing is that, see, government has already adopted the policy because it's already 1 year, and various measures have been taken at various levels. Maybe UGC or NAAC or many other regulatory bodies are working towards it. The national curricular framework and guidelines have also been formed and shaped. It has come to a certain level, and state governments are also working towards implementation. So to talk about Karnataka, because I'm from Karnataka, we have already implemented the policy, and then at various institutions the all policy has been adopted, uh, and this is happening. But ultimately what happens is that we are the change agents. That means the institutions and institutional stakeholders are the change agents, and we are the ones who will be bringing this change. And our acceptance of the policy points is very, very critical. And one is doing what the government says is one thing. Second thing is, even before the government says something, we will look at the policy points and then we start at our own level, starting implementation. And the third aspect is that we think beyond national education policy. NEP has given guidelines and guidance and an overall structure, but how do we innovatively try and implement? How do we think differently on these certain points and then start working is the third challenge that we have. So these are the three things: doing what the government says, secondly, doing without what the government is saying in the form of regulations, and third is thinking beyond national education policy and changing the systems in our own education system. Okay, so I'll be sharing my PPT with you. Tell me if it is visible. Sir, is it visible, sir?
Not yet, madam. Not yet, madam. Kindly share it again.
Now?
No, madam. No, madam. No, madam.
Is it? Okay, 1 second. Now, sir? Sir,
Yes,
now?
yes, madam. Now, yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Okay.
Yes, you can make it to full screen and you can continue.
Okay, I have made it full screen now. I have made it full screen. Okay. Yeah. So broadly, when we talk about the vision of the national education policy, this policy is much talked about because it is holistic in nature and it looks for an equitable, that means that which can consider all citizens as equal and bring with an inclusive approach. We need to establish that kind of an education system to establish a vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all. It develops a deep sense of respect towards the fundamental rights, duties, and constitutional values, bonding with one's country, and a conscious awareness of one's role and responsibilities in a changing world. Instill skills, values, and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development, living, global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. So, what I would like to say, if you read this vision statement, is that this national education policy was formulated taking into account the current changes, the transformations that are happening in the world, in the global scenario, with respect to the professionalism that is being brought about in the entire global space.
Excuse me,
So,
madam. The
yes,
vision
sir.
is not coming. The next slide is not moving. Only the first slide is seen.
Are you seeing the vision slide, sir?
No, no, madam. That's what I wanted to tell you.
You are still in the first slide, is it?
Yeah, in the first slide only we are.
First
Now?
line, madam. No, madam, it's not moving.
Why, sir? I'll do one.
Yeah, now it is moving.
Okay,
No, it is going to change it. No, it is okay.
okay. I went to the this thing slideshow mode. In the slideshow mode, probably it is not moving, sir.
Yeah, it is not coming in full screen, madam.
Now in full screen, are you getting it? Vision?
No, madam.
No, madam.
I'll exit full screen and I will present it like this. Is that okay?
Yeah, madam, no problem.
Okay. Yeah.
No, that's not a problem. We can enlarge on our end. You can go ahead. It is visible to us.
Okay.
We can enlarge at our
Madam,
end.
you have to share your presentation screen, madam.
That's what I could not.
Now you share the PPT, so you have to share that presentation mode screen, madam.
Ma'am, you can just switch
Again,
to
you go to the
F5.
share and select that one, madam.
No, I'm trying F5, but still it doesn't move.
Now
Is it
again, you
moving?
try to share it, madam. That screen.
Is it moving now?
No, madam.
Ma'am, you can stop sharing application and start sharing your screen, ma'am.
Stop sharing application. Now it stopped sharing, right?
Yes, ma'am.
One second. Now? Now, full screen? Did it move, madam?
No, ma'am.
No,
Vision?
no, no.
Oh. Okay, is the screen shared?
Yes, ma'am, it is
Screen
visible.
is shared, right? Screen is shared, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. I'll continue with this because that F5 mode is not happening. I'll just check once again and then fine. So coming to, I was talking about the vision part of it. See, this national education policy was formulated taking into account many things. One is we all know that 1968, the first educational policy was framed after independence, and post that 1986 was the second milestone wherein changes were made to the 68 policy. See, after 34 years, after 1986, the policy that we are seeing is after 34 years. And you know what are the changes that have happened globally as well as within the country, what changes have happened with respect to technology, with respect to economy, and with respect to the society itself. So, all these changes had to be incorporated. Of course, the first two policies talk lot about equity.
Ma'am?
All these are taken into consideration and the policy has been framed. And another thing which I would like to tell you is that this policy is seriously telling you it is not for our generation, it is for the future, because the future of the country requires what kind of individuals. See, all these days we have worked in our education system in silos in the sense we had lot of divisions, we had lot of top down approach that we had implemented, but everything is going to open up. It is like it is clearing the block ways and it is going to open up in a different manner so that our children, our grandchildren in the next generations will have a total different kind of a system wherein they can really think, wherein they can develop a holistic perspective in life. So these are the primary principles of the national education policy. So I've just put it in this radial. all the policy principles which are critical in the national education policy. See, as I told you, it is a bottom-up approach. That means we have to start the implementation. It is not coming from the top. Mostly everything comes bottom-up. So in a two-party system, the second party becomes important. That's how bottom-up approach works. Then it is broad-based. It is not narrowing the scope at any point, but it is broad based. If you can take many points like integration of education, right from bringing the ECCE is early childhood care and education into the fold of education. You know that Anganwadis have also been has also been incorporated into education. All these days, Anganwadis were not a part of this. So this 5+3+3+5 policy, whatever the new structure of education, brings into fold the early childhood care as well as education. So that means mothers are also who start giving education to a child at a very early stage are also stakeholders of education. So it starts from there. It is highly broad based, and then autonomy is given to the institution. Unnecessary regulations, unnecessary interferences will be avoided. Autonomy will be given so that institution will work towards quality and raise their standards. And decentralization, like the every institution, whether located in the rural area, whether in the urban area, whether it is a government institution, whether it is a private institution, so everyone will have their own powers. So the power center is not in giving away with the affiliation system itself is a very good indicator of decentralization. So all these years, you know that this public universities, the state public universities had large number of affiliated colleges, so that the policy is moving away, and then saying that every institution should become an autonomous institute. And then transparency, because uh, with respect to all the disclosures, whatever the institution has to do, having a broad based governance structure, all those indicate transparency. Light and tight regulation, there is regulation, not that there is no regulation, but no, philanthropic private is encouraged rather than business private. Okay, so light and tight regulations will be there. Wherever there are some harassments which are happening to the student community or any other stakeholders, then the regulation comes into picture and makes it much tighter. Age based learning, we all know that children were overburdened with content. Okay, so we used to start at a very early stage, starting even before the child gets into the LKG, the lower grade. The child was forced to learn alphabets and then letters and then words. But here they have worked on with a group of psychologists what needs to be learned in grade 1, what is in grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, everything, right from foundation courses of numeracy and literacy. Everything has been framed according to age, and then making more self reliant in terms of integrating a lot of skills. And then holistic, multilingual, India centric, these are the primary principles of NEP. Multilingual is, instead of we teaching in only one single language, for example, English is the medium of communication. So, national education policy attempts to bring in that multilingual, bilingual teaching at an early stage to the children and teaching in the mother tongue. So, all these, if you look at, these are the basic principles of the national education policy. See, now because we have all stakeholders who are attending this webinar from the higher education institutions, I'll be taking up only some key points from the reforms in the higher education sector. Okay, I'm not touching on the school education part of it. Of course, school education links the secondary education links the higher education. But there are several reforms, and some of these are also extended to the school systems also. So institutional restructuring and consolidation. So if you take institutional restructuring in the institutional spectrum, so now we know how many types of colleges are there, right? We have different nomenclatures for universities. We had deemed university, we had state public universities, we had central universities. So we were calling the universities by the nature of their ownership, right? Ownership was the basis to call a university. Now it would be based on what is the function that they perform. Either it will be research intensive university or a teaching intensive university. A research intensive university is a university which will have more component of research and less of teaching, and teaching intensive university more teaching and less research. So these are the two categories of universities, and all that names which we used with the ownership of the institutions is will not be taken into account. So almost all the regulations will be for on the basis of whether it is a teaching intensive university or research intensive university. And the third category, if you look at, there were a large number of colleges. We had autonomous colleges, we had affiliated colleges. So most institutions, so especially if I have to talk about Bangalore, we have three universities: Bangalore University, Bangalore North University, and Bangalore Central City University. Earlier, it was only one university, Bangalore University, which had 654 affiliated colleges. Okay, so now these huge numbers are getting to uh, change their what is that, the kind of structure that it had, that it was an affiliated institute, but in future it all becomes autonomous degree granting institutions. That means every institution will have a right to grant the degree. Okay, so when we say autonomous, you know that what is autonomy, correct? So autonomy comes with both academic autonomy as well as administrative autonomy. There are two kinds of autonomies: academic as well as administrative. So what do you mean by academic autonomy? Is like freedom to start programs across fields and disciplines, and we can decide our own curriculum, and then we can have our own research programs, and then decide on the kind of assessments. Earlier it was university used to decide university examination. Okay, everyone had to write university exams. So when it becomes individual independent colleges, institutions will have to devise their own assessments. They will have the capability of opening campuses, running online digital programs, and control over growth and development trajectory of their own institutions. So this is called as academic and administrative autonomy, which the national education policy talks about. So for this kind of autonomy, what is required is every institution should have a board of should constitute a board of governors and academic council. Powers and functions of the board of governors will have to be very well defined, and then there should be transformational institutional leadership, and then autonomy has to be given to all the faculty members. See what happens, when we talk about autonomy, even when autonomy comes, people, because they are used to working in a different style, very difficult to implement this kind of an autonomy, both academic as well as administrative and financial. So this kind of institutions is visualized by the national education policy. So structure for development and connecting to the society, that is also one very important aspect the national education policy brings in at every point, that how educational institutions get connected to the society. how the community engagement is going to happen, whether it is a school or whether it is Anganwadis or whether it is colleges. How are we having a structure to connect to the society? So community engagement is a critical part of the entire national education policy and mechanisms of public accountability. So this is the first point with respect to institutional restructuring and consolidation. This is one of the primary suggestions, recommendations that has been made by the national education policy. So for this, in the implementation part, what has been suggested is every institution should develop an institutional development plan. So what is an institution development plan? So with respect to various aspects of an education institution, every institute should foresee what it needs to be doing to raise their level of accreditation. Okay, so now we are attending the program from NAAC. So you're all aware of NAAC accreditation. So how many of our institutions have been accredited by NAAC, and how are we what is our plan to get this kind of accreditation and getting into graded autonomy? So that is what will be implemented. Once you get accreditation and you reach a certain level, autonomy can be obtained. So every institution has to prepare phase-wise plan for accreditation and autonomy, and implementing multidisciplinary education and making it more holistic, phase-wise plan for faculty development, research and innovation, and phase-wise plan for community engagement and inclusion. So very critical is that every institution should start preparing an institutional developmental plan. Okay, so I hope after this webinar, I'm sure that many of you you might have already started something in your institution, but still make it a point that every institution, every department works on this kind of a development plan so that you can move towards graded autonomy in the near future. So the second important dimension of higher education which has been covered in the national education policy is the holistic multidisciplinary education. So in Karnataka already we have implemented this kind of a holistic multidisciplinary education system. What is multidisciplinary education is that we all know that we had all these years arts, science, commerce, engineering, medicine, law, all these were separated and there was no relationship between one discipline and another discipline. So coming together and offering the courses, because a student requires not only commerce, not only science, but he or she requires a multidisciplinary perspective in handling the problems of the society. So just think about a problem like um, uh, waste management. Okay, so for waste management you need a multidisciplinary perspective. So you need to understand the psychology of people as to how, what do they think about waste, and how to change their mindsets. Or if you talk about what is that, e-waste, or it may be medical waste, so how this waste has to be managed. So for this you need some kind of understanding of science. Okay, and then you may need to have an understanding of the supply chain as to how this has to move from one place to another. I'm just giving a tentative example, but many of the problems that the country has, and you all know, like the Kumbh Mela which was conducted, like it had a multidisciplinary approach. So it was health was one dimension, this what is it, vaccination is another dimension, or it may be management is the third dimension. Like this many disciplines come together in handling anything in this society. That's why education has to become multidisciplinary in nature. So when you have this broad-based multidiscipline structure, that means students will be allowed to make a choice. Not necessarily all the courses that I am learning is related to science. I may pick up few science courses, but if I am interested in dramatics, if I am interested in music, I may take up music along with computers. Okay, so that is the kind of a multidisciplinary structure that is envisaged by the national education policy. So here in this situation, there will be provision for greater flexibility and choice. Greater flexibility in the sense students can make their choice. They are not forced. Okay, so they have greater flexibility. For example, once they complete their graduation course, they have options. If they have to pursue post graduation, either they can pursue in if I have studied computer science and music, then I can pursue either in music or in computers. Okay, so this brings greater depth and also breadth in the disciplines. Greater depth in the sense, see, not that when we are learning, many times when I have spoken about this policy, people have asked a question whether everybody will become jack of all trades, okay, rather than becoming master. But it is not like that. So the national education policy suggests a 4-year multidisciplinary course wherein the first 2 years will be much broad based, and the third and the fourth years will be more focused towards bringing that kind of a greater depth or specialization or concentration. So earlier we were calling some of the areas as curricular, extracurricular, and co-curricular. Sports means it was always co-curricular, right? Or extracurricular. Or music was always extracurricular. Now it is not like that. Everything has to be integrated in the curriculum structure, and credits will have to be provided to all kinds of courses. So another important aspect of this multidisciplinary education structure is making learning more experiential. So experiential is not delivering from the textbooks, but making it more hands-on to the students so that they learn better. We all have known that, we all know that we have introduced Bloom's taxonomy, and then we work on different kinds levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, and we also assess in the same manner. So learning has to become more experiential and moving from high stake examinations to comprehensive evaluation. So I told you about university examination is one of the biggest things that we were all talking about, and all the syllabus was covered keeping in view the high stake examinations. Instead of having this kind of a high stake examination process, it will be continuous comprehensive evaluation, which has already been implemented in the schools. So this radial talks about what the multidisciplinary education provides. I told you about choice. They have choices in disciplines, they have choices in electives. Focus, they can study majors and minors, and the fourth year graduation would be specialization in honors. And then skills are totally integrated at all levels. So in the initial years we have transferable skills, and in the later years there will be disciplinary skills. So transferable skills are, for example, Excel. Okay, so Excel is required by everyone, right? Whether you are engineering graduate, a commerce graduate, a science graduate, or an arts graduate, some computer skills are very much required. So a journalism student has to write. So writing skill is a disciplinary skill, right? And then doing a test in the laboratory, okay, is a disciplinary skill. Similarly, drawing a balance sheet is a disciplinary skill. So there are disciplinary skills which are specific to the disciplines, and transferable skills which are across all the disciplines. So the national education policy suggests that skills will have to be integrated, whether it is disciplinary or transferable. Deep knowledge, that is, the national education policy has also suggested that we need to work on research and project based learning. And then career is one aspect which the national education policy takes care, because when you have a multidisciplinary approach, change in careers would be possible. So we are not restricted. An accountant need not remain an accountant lifelong. Okay. So for example, if I'm interested in something else, I should be in a position to change. And this has been observed in many cases. Many people who have changed their careers, you and me, we all know that many people careers in between. And the organizational structures have become from a pyramid shape to an hourglass shape. In the middle, there is, most of them are living at the middle stage and then taking up newer careers. So all these are taken care by the national education policy, holistic and multidisciplinary education recommendation. So another important thing is multiple exit and entry option, made possible with the help of the credit structure. Okay, because we have credits, the number of credits. For example, it is stipulated that in the first year, whatever the student studies, he should have a set of 24 credits. So 24 credits, I may choose to study something in the area of mathematics, something in social sciences, something in commerce. I'm taking up all general courses, or I may take physics, chemistry, and then another course could be is that constitution. So like that, you can study many courses, and if you have 24 credits, then you will be getting a certificate. You can exit at the first year, and then you can re-enter at any time. So many problems of the students all these years that they faced, that they cannot once they have quit first year, they can, many of them are dropouts after first year or second year degree, and they cannot join back. So these problems can be avoided, especially in rural areas, and women who get married and who cannot pursue their education. Here there is an option for people, because you have an academic bank of credits, which I'm be talking about at a later stage. So our credits will get accumulated in the academic bank, and then whenever we want to rejoin, we can make use of the credits and say that I have already completed so many credits. I have to finish only these many credits to get a BS degree. So this is the advantage of holistic and multidisciplinary education. Okay, so I'm just giving you a brief of the 4-year course. Year 1 about understanding and exploration, year 2 focus and immersion, year 3 real time learning, and year 4 is deeper focus and concentration. So all these are major minor combinations. Many major minor options can be introduced. The institutions, universities have to figure out what are the options that can be provided. Open electives options should be given. So like this, there are different nature of courses can be introduced at the 4-year course. Okay, so this is what we have done in Karnataka, because I was in the curriculum development for the state of Karnataka. We worked on certain options, various options, like in the first option could be, what could be the first option, what could be the one major one minor. Option 3 could be 2 major disciplines. Option 4 could be 1 major discipline and 1 vocation discipline. Option 5 would be 1 major discipline and 1 education discipline, because B.Ed is also integrated with the regular course. So those who want to become teachers, they can go for the last option, where 1 major discipline and 1 education discipline could be studied along with all others. Okay, so each university, each state will have to prepare different options. Okay, what could be offered to the students. So I hope I have covered enough on this holistic and multidisciplinary skills. And one just point to add about is the academic bank of credits. Academic bank of credits is basically to facilitate academic mobility. So, for example, a student studied in Telangana and now wants to pursue education in Bangalore. Okay, 1 year already they have studied. All these years we did not have the facility to transfer the credits. So once they move out, they had to start from the beginning, and credit transfer mechanism was very tough. And this academic bank of credits will make it very easy, make it easy for students. They will have the freedom to study across education institutions in the country as also abroad. You all know that students who had to study abroad had problems of 3 year 4 year course, right? In the other countries, they expect a certain number of credits for them to take up a post graduation course. Okay, so students can complete their credit requirements in the country, which will become equivalent to that is both European credit system as well as the American credit system. So I think it's very small. Okay, what are the benefits of academic bank of credits? Freedom and flexibility in the university granting system, standardization within an Indian higher education system, robust integration of the Indian higher education system, and a move towards internationalization of Indian higher education. So these are the basic benefits of this academic bank of credits. So mobility is one thing, and what does ABC do? That is academic bank of credits. It will be responsible for opening an account, academic account of the student, closing the academic account, validating the academic accounts of the students, and it will perform tasks like credit verification, credit accumulation, credit transfer, credit redemption, and promotion of the ABC amongst the stakeholders. And these credits, even if they do SWAYAM courses or NPTEL courses, that will also be in the academic credit bank of credit structure. So large benefits we get with the help of academic bank of credits. And then students can redeem the credits based on the validity. In one subject, you can do some exchanges also. If the student has accumulated some credits, they can decide to drop out. And for example, they have accumulated 100 credits, maybe it is equal to some 3 year course, then naturally they can do only the required credits for completion of that particular degree. So these are the various benefits of academic bank of credits. Okay, I hope I have covered this. And coming to the structure, uh, okay, so the next is skill development. Okay, the fourth is skill development. So briefly I have touched upon skill development in multidisciplinary education about transferable skills as well as uh, disciplinary skills. But one important measure that the national education policy has suggested is integration of vocational education along with the regular mainstream education. So we had polytechnic colleges, right, which was giving skill courses, specific skill courses. But this comes under the mainstream education, like how they were acquiring degrees, BE or BSc, in the same the skills will be integrated. So how is a skill being integrated is that in all teaching, the theory and practical should be given equal weightage. So all these days, you know that it was 30 marks of practicals and 70 marks of theory. So it should become equal. Students will have to work more with respect to the skills rather than with respect to the courses. That is discipline, because they also need conceptual knowledge. At the same time, they also need skill based education. And then all the occasional skills, carpentry, plumbing, electrical repairing, horticulture, pottery, embroidery, all these skills will be integrated at a very early stage to the students. that is right from the school levels, from 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th standard, which is called as a secondary education. It becomes holistic and multidisciplinary. Vocational skills will become a part of the mainstream education. So we all know what are the 21st century skills. It's about foundational literacies, competencies, and character qualities. And this national education policy suggests that these skills, this 21st century skills, will have to be integrated with the education. So it also talks about T-shaped professionals. T-shaped professionals or okay, so this is the top horizontal line is the broad based competencies, and the vertical line is the depth. So when we talk about multidisciplinary education, it is about depth as well as it is about the breadth. That is, you need to have deep disciplinary expertise, but at the same time you need to have multiple skills to move to the next level in the career. Okay, so the how is sorry, it has to come under outcome based education. Sorry. Okay, so we have understood what are skills and how skills will have to be integrated by all of us in our classes. And another important aspect that we need to work in educational institutions, whether it is curriculum, whether it is pedagogy, or whether it is assessment, is everything should have to be outcome based.
చెప్పాలి కదా ఈ టైంలో వస్తాను చెప్తా ఆ టైంలో వస్తా
Sir, can I continue? Outcome based education. Let us see how outcome, you all know what is outcome based education, right? So we are thinking as to like what the students have to achieve at the end of the course. That is called as outcomes. So what should be the actual performance? It is not about performing in the examination. It is about what they will be able to do at the end of the course. So if you look at this diagram, I'll finish it faster in another 10 minutes probably. Hello? So what the student should be able to do at the end of the course. This is outcome based education. So if you look at curriculum, if you have to have an outcome based curriculum, how do you set the curriculum based on the outcome based education? And this curriculum defines as to how to make the student achieve the outcome, and how do you adapt your teaching and learning process to the to what the student has to achieve. So for example, if we are still continuing with our lecturing kind of a methodology, would we be able to achieve the student outcomes? This is the question we'll all have to answer, right? Would we be able to achieve those student outcomes? Like for example, at the end of my course, I want that my student should be able to prepare a strategic plan for a new business. Then in such a case, if I am teaching what is strategy and how to make a business plan, it's all theoretically, then will the student be able to create a business plan? It is not possible, right? So our teaching learning has to change, right? Instead of giving all the conceptual backdrop, explaining them conceptually and making them imagine a company and creating all this, we'll have to make it more hands-on. So for example, we attach the student to a startup and tell him that you work with the entrepreneur and create a strategic plan for this company. Then if we do, then it will be naturally experiential. And finally, outcome based assessment is whether the student is able to do this, what you thought about, whether he will be able to do it, whether he is really doing it. So our question paper patterns will have to change. So instead of asking what are the advantages and disadvantages of something in your examination, we'll have to ask them all questions which are very, very practical. Even if you don't do an examination and ask the student to work with a company and see that how he has created something. So what is the creation that the student has made? That is called as outcome based education. So if we all have to implement this outcome based education, we will have to understand what is outcome based education, how to have a curriculum which is outcome based, how to change our teaching learning processes which we are adopting, and how to make assessment which is outcome based. See, I'm saying this is not at all easy. It's a very, very big challenge because all our faculty are used to a different structure, a different system, and if we have to make completely outcome based, it is going to be little tough. So experiential learning and flipped classrooms, that is, and assessment based on this has to be achieved by all of us. Okay, just see this diagram. What is teacher centered course design and student centered course design? So this is the first one is coming the arrow mark left to right. So teacher is important. Everything teacher will decide. So what I should teach today, and how will I organize the content, and then what you have taught, whether he has understood, not understood. So this is how we do. Whereas in a student centered course design, it will be reverse. So I'll understand what the student has to learn. The learning goals will have to be set. Their learning objectives will have to be set. We'll have to decide on what are the learning activities and what should be the content to be taught. Okay. So this, see this diagram, outcome based learning in 3 areas. Which are the areas? The first area is curriculum, second area is pedagogy, and third area is assessment. So in all the 3 areas, we need to bring outcome based education. So I hope I've made it very clear to you what is outcome based education. I think if you are okay with this, we will go to the next level, that is continuous. I have only 2 slides. I'll be closing in just 2 minutes. Continuous professional development of faculty. Okay. So I told you, if we have to change to what is required and what the national education policy talks about, the biggest thing that we need to achieve is continuous professional development of the faculty members. So faculty need to change a lot, right? So we need to build capacity of the existing faculty and new recruits. We'll have to change all their mindset from an old fashioned style of teaching to an outcome based teaching methodology. Understand what are the best practices in faculty development, exposed to contemporary pedagogic practices. So this is very, very critical. Exposure to contemporary pedagogic practices, developing blueprint for faculty development, guidelines for faculty recruitment, career progression and compensation, and use of educational technology for continuous development of teachers. So this is one big thing that needs to happen in our education sector, in the higher education, and this is what national education policy talks about. Because ultimately, if we want to see change in the students, it is the change in the faculty. Okay. So the next one is research and innovation ecosystem in institutions. See, there are 3 important concepts, components of any institution today, which is much talked about. One is teaching learning, the second is research, and the third is community engagement. So this also you can put it in the form of a Venn diagram. Teaching learning, research and innovation, and the third is community engagement. So all these go hand in hand. So we talked about outcome based education, teaching learning. The next component is about research and innovation ecosystem. So the national education policy has suggested the formation of a top body called as National Research Foundation, which will enable seed, grow, and facilitate research and establishing linkages between researchers, government, and industry. So what we need to do as institutions is that we need to institutionalize the research through a mentoring process. So research needs to be institutionalized. That means we are all doing research as individuals. All faculty are doing research, but how institutional approach towards research is very, very critical, and building a strong mentoring process for research is what we are talking about. Collaborations with research universities and institutions which have a good research ecosystem, develop both internal and external funding mechanisms, establishing peer review process and development to capacity building to develop proposals. Okay, so coming to the last slide. Okay, who is the center point of our whole national education policy is the student. Savita, can you take this call? So creating a student support environment. So how are we going to create this kind of a student support environment is ensuring joyous, rigorous, and responsive curriculum. So how are the students feeling today? You need to understand. Are they learning with joy, or they come for the sake of attendance? Correct. So attendance becomes a very, very critical measuring factor for our students, because until and unless we make our teaching joyful, rigorous, and responsive, it would be very tough to have. There is no student support environment in the institution. Engaging and effective pedagogy, which I have already talked about. Promoting student wellness. So let us not think about students as only those people who come only to get that kind of pass the examination. They are not the students. We'll have to look at the overall health of the children, because you know how much of problems the current generation is facing in terms of psychological and social problems. So we need to promote good health, psychosocial well-being, and sound ethical grounding. Stimulating learning experiences, opportunities for social engagement, and assessment for the sake of development and not for the sake of judgment. So our mindset has to change. So we are assessing not for judgment. You are good, you are bad, you have not performed in the examination, you are a bad student. It is not for that sake, but it is only for the sake of the development of the student. So these are some of the very, very critical elements of the national education policy with respect to higher education. I've covered the list that which I had put out. And another important point was community engagement, which I have not considered. Community engagement also is a very critical element, because until and unless you fulfill all these three, these are the vertices of the triangle: teaching, learning, research, and community engagement. So if we are not looking at community engagement, that means we are missing at one of the vertex of the triangle. So lastly, I urge all of you to make NEP a reality by putting in your efforts. Because if you hear all this, is that something someone has to say us, tell us that you need to do it, whereas as faculty members we ourselves will have to incorporate and inculcate all these practices within our own institutions and at the individual level also. So if all this can happen, because that's why I told you we need a bottom up approach, so to make national education policy a reality for our future. So thank you so much. Thanks for giving me this excellent opportunity to talk about national education policy. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. That was really wonderful.
Thank you, madam.
Yes, sir. So if you have any questions, I can take, and then.
Thank you, madam.
Good evening,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you,
Ma'am,
madam.
it was really very wonderful and very clear. I mean, in 1 hour, you gave us a complete picture as how, especially at higher education level, we can work and we have to move forward. Madam, I have one question regarding academic bank of credits you talked about. There, madam, accumulated credits will remain valid for 7 years.
7 years. Yes, yes, yes.
In that sense, how is it that, ma'am?
No, it will be in the academic bank of credits. Even if you discontinue for a period of 5 years or 6 years, till 7 years it will be valid. You can get back and then get your academic. You can redeem your credits
within 7 years. He has to complete.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Within 7 years, the student has to redeem.
Yes, it is possible.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
After 7 years, he'll forego all those things, or
Yes,
they will
yes.
remain, ma'am.
Yes, yes. 7 years it will be effective. Okay, please go through the UGC guidelines, ma'am. It is
Sure.
on the this thing
Okay.
UGC website itself. So they've already come with a complete
Okay, ma'am.
detailed
Thank you.
note on academic banking credits. Okay, yeah.
Madam, good evening, madam. This is Dr. Achita, Principal RBVR Women's College, madam. The academic bank, that is credits, is possible for only universities, no, madam. For affiliated colleges and autonomous colleges, it is not possible, no.
Right
Is
now,
it possible for all
it has to
colleges?
be, yes, yes. Yes, yes. Right now, it is only for the universities. In future, it's only on a testing mode right now. So once the capabilities of the institutions enhance, then only it will be possible for all the other institutions to make use of it.
Okay, madam. One more question. According to national education policy, they are going towards more and more autonomy. But in autonomous colleges, only those who have NAAC A grade, they are going to extend the autonomy. Then, how can it possible? In one hand, they are saying that. In one hand, they are saying that more and more autonomy, and on the other hand, they are saying that only the autonomy will be extended those they are those who get the NAAC A grade.
It is a graded autonomy, madam. Graded autonomy means for A grade, this for if you what is the level of autonomy which will be given. If you are at this quality level, this is the autonomy. If you are at the next level of quality, what is the autonomy given? If you are at the A grade, then complete autonomy. So like that, autonomous levels will be varying, madam. What is expected is in the next 20 years time, all institutions will have to reach to that level to have that kind of a quality. Everyone should aim at becoming a grade institution to have full autonomy for the institutions. That's why I said about graded autonomy. What is graded autonomy is what is the level of the quality of the institution. Graded means it is depending on the quality. If you are capable of setting your own running your own courses, setting your own question papers, and conducting your own examinations, giving the degrees, that capability once we achieve, that means naturally we will be reaching the level of getting A grade in NAAC, right? That is called as graded autonomy.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Shall we close? Vishnu Mahesh, are you here?
Yeah, madam, one question, madam.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
Madam, can you kindly elaborate on multilingual education, most specific to engineering education?
With respect to engineering education or in terms of any other education, one thing, this multilingual education is overall principle of the national education policy to promote Indian languages, and it is suggested that all institutions and the university should have a center of languages which promotes language textbooks, okay, textbooks in the local languages. But especially in, right now, this may not be possible because we are all teaching in English and it is very technical in nature, okay. But however, to whatever extent possible, we should be promoting Indian languages, and bilingual teaching is for the school level, sir. School level, we have bilingual education that has been suggested. Multilingual education is possible only through content generation. First level is content generation. If we don't have content in other languages, right, so then how can you teach? So it may not be possible for engineering colleges right now. This is a long drawn process. If we promote our Indian languages now, maybe in some 20 years, 30 years, we can look for teaching some of the technical papers also in these languages. So right now it is not possible.
Thank you very much, madam. Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Are we like getting any sort of structure for fine arts or music and theater to implement this NEP? Because this is overall structure we got it, but because we are into training art and the theater, we are really getting difficulty to implement these structures.
See, actually,
Because mentorship is very important for us. So
sir,
more
in the universities in Andhra and the Higher Education Council in your region has to start working on this. But in Karnataka, we have already implemented with respect to sports also. They have come out with a curriculum, what needs to be taught and how it has to be taught. Expert teams were formed, and then they have done it
in
with
Karnataka,
respect to
ma'am.
performing arts. It has been done.
Any
So
specific
same has
institution,
to
ma'am?
be extended.
Any specific?
University itself has Higher Education Council came out with all the guidelines, sir, and
Okay.
universities have worked on that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello,
Okay,
madam.
thank you so much. Yes, sir. You have any question?
Yeah. And actually, before presenting, madam told having some one important meeting. So I'm Dr. D.K. Kamble, Assistant Advisor NAAC. If there is no question, I close the session with vote of thanks. First of all, on behalf of NAAC and my personal behalf, I am very much thankful to all the participants, those who have participated in this webinar. I am very much thankful on the behalf of NAAC and my personal behalf to today's eminent speaker, Professor Mansa Madam has given a wonderful presentation about NEP in this webinar. I am also very much thankful to my senior colleague, Dr. Shyam Sundar sir, Dr. Vishnu Mahesh, N.R. Mohan, to make this webinar successfully. And also I would like to thank to our ICT team, Professor Amya Kumar Sararat, Samuel, Usha Lakshmi, given ICT support to make this program successfully. So once again, I thank one and all on behalf of NAAC. So now I request to ICT Pusha Lakshmi, please close the session.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, sir.
Are there any more speakers? Is the meeting over? Hello.